Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range with a brand new offering from IWI. Now first let's talk about the original. We're going to talk about the new Galil ACE, but in my hands I have my original IWI, or I should say IMI, Galil, which is in 5.56. This is easily one of the best AK variants ever produced in my opinion. It's one of the most well-made, most accurate AKs that's ever hit the market. Sadly, they haven't been imported into the US for a couple of decades. And when I toured the factory in Israel, a couple of years ago now, they told me that the tooling to manufacture these doesn't even exist anymore in Israel. So there are several countries out there that still manufacture the original Galil, South Africa, some South American countries. The Israelis themselves no longer manufacture this gun. They've moved on to the new Galil ACE. It's relatively new, at least to the US market. The rifle's been around for a little while. So we're going to do a little bit of shooting with the original first, then I'm going to give you guys a peek at the new 7.62 by 39 Galil ACE. Let's check this bad boy out. All right guys, here it is. Now I've had this rifle on the channel once before. I had one of the early imports, which was the exact same rifle. It just wasn't import ready. The gun that I was shooting then was a sample that they had imported for approval. This is the final rifle. This is what's actually shipping right now. You can pick up just about anywhere. We hope to be carrying these as well at Copper. As you can tell, this thing looks very much like the original Galil with some distinct differences. First of all, they attempted to lighten the rifle, so it still has a milled machined receiver here, but now we have a polymer lower with a molded in pistol grip. The trigger has a slightly different profile, but it still retains its original AK type magazine release. Now what you'll also notice is that it's missing an opening here on the right hand side, where the charging handle would normally ride, even on the original Galil. And we have an abbreviated selector lever here, which you can hit with your firing finger. You can reach up, flip it off, and fire the gun, and then put it back on. But much like the original Galil, we have the ability to select safer fire right here with the firing thumb. So you can watch that selector lever go up and down. You push forward to go to fire, pull back to go to safe. The charging handle's been relocated over here to the left-hand side, and it has this spring-loaded trap door, which helps to seal the rifle. So now what you're basically getting is a very high-quality AK that no longer has a major point of ingress for debris. So you've sealed the AK's reliable action from the elements. So when you run the charging handle, which is reciprocating, it goes back and pushes a spring-loaded door down, but then closes itself. So, and also the gun does not lock open when it's empty. Okay, so it retains that functionality as well as the standard AK or the Galil that came before it. So when it runs dry, you're going to get a click, and then you have to insert a magazine and run the bolt. But again, it's a nice sealed system. Also, you're going to see you have a 1913 rail across the top here. You have two sections, one that's on the gas tube itself and then one that's on the top cover. It works much like the original Galil. It has this long tab here on the rear, a steel reinforced top cover that auto centers when you put it on, and then you have your iron sights fixed to the top cover back here and then up here on the front gas block. On top of this ACE, I have a Meprolite True Dot. This is the 399 version. This is from Optics Planet. These are really good sights. I like using them. I have, I think, 3 of these sights now, and there's the 599 version, which has the metal cover on top of it, and then the 399 version, which has this polymer top cover. And I found these to be extremely durable as it is. The front post on this is kind of a tapered post, and you have your protective ears. And then here I have a Griffin Armament muzzle device because I do plan on suppressing it. Another cool feature of the ACE is the fact that you have these removable side panels, and this is all standard military configuration, and underneath you have 1913 rails. You'll also notice that you have a buttonhole here and the plumbing for a switch in case you want to run a light. All right, so you can actually put your little pressure sensor in there and plumb your wiring out and put your light up here if you want, or laser designator or whatever it is. And you have rails on both sides and on the bottom. Overall, it feels really good. The gun is very ergonomic, shoulders very nicely. It retains the original Galil's folding style stock, which is now adjustable for length of pull. So you can adjust it to your own length, where the original Galil was just metal and non-adjustable, but it did fold. Still folds, you just give it a tug and it extends it. When it's folded, it'll stay folded under spring pressure. If you shake it hard enough, well, I guess I can't even do it if I shake it hard enough. It stays folded, so it's not going anywhere. All right, let's do a little bit of shooting with it. Now, we've already found out that it doesn't like Tapco magazines, but it does work with the mag pulls, and it works with most standard European magazines, the steel surplus mags, and it even works with the Russian Reds. All right, charge the rifle, put it on safe here really quick, and this is, of course, 7.62 by 39, and let's see how she shoots. Get the stock set, turn on my red dot sight here, and here we go. So there we go. Recoil is pleasant. I mean, it's very, very controllable. It comes with a standard bird cage on it. Again, I put that Griffin Armament muzzle device on there, a 3-prong flash hider, because I want to suppress it. Let's go ahead and throw a suppressor on it and just see what it's like. Now, AKs, historically speaking, aren't the most quiet guns when you suppress them. I don't anticipate this being the quietest gun. We'll put it on the meter later. I'm going to go ahead and put my Recce 7 on here and run a few mags through it and see what it sounds like. I have my Recce 7 now screwed on to the end of the Galil ACE here. Keep in mind that it does have a standard 5/8 by 24 thread pitch on here, so it will accept standard 30 caliber muzzle devices. I got a couple of different types of ammunition here. First off, I have some Wolf hollow point, and we'll see how that stuff works in here. And this is from our friends over at Lucky Gunner. I anticipate the gun's probably going to be really, really overgassed, and AKs don't make the best suppressor platforms in the world, but let's see how this rifle does. Yep, way overgassed. That was with the Wolf hollow point stuff. Rode up over the round in the magazine. My guess is the bolt carrier velocity is so high that the magazine follower can't push the round up fast enough for the bolt to catch it. It's definitely making a full stroke because I can feel increased recoil. All right. Go ahead and fire that one round out. It's really heaving those spent cases too. All right, let's try some of the Red Army standard ammunition. Again, this is from our friends over at Lucky Gunner, and this is some Ukrainian ball. Same thing. It's just popping rounds out of the magazine. All right, so that's not the gun. That's going to be the suppressor on the gun. I'm just going to go ahead and say that these things probably aren't suppressor friendly. I do have an OSS suppressor coming, which is supposed to have reduced back pressure, and maybe it'll work on here. I'll screw that on to the end of this gun because this gun will definitely need it. I've ran into this problem with AR-10s, for example. I've had to put Gemtech bolt carriers in my AR-10s, which are 308 AR-15s basically, because of the overgas situation. I would get malfunctions like that. So I'm going to go ahead and say that just a standard suppressor and the Galil ACE probably aren't a good combination. Hopefully the OSS suppressor fixes that. Stay tuned for that. Let's take the ACE apart and see what it looks like on the inside, and then we'll also compare it to the original Galil. First of all, drop the magazine out. As always, check to make sure the chamber is empty. And I will say the bolt and the action on this thing is as smooth as glass. It is easily one of the nicest AK actions I've ever felt. I just can't stress that enough. All right, so you're going to push the rear tab in, pull up on the top cover, and it's a very snug fit. Get that off now. Because I have a red dot sight on it, it's going to stay mounted to the top cover. And here's what it looks like on the inside. Has its own built-in recoil buffer. You can see the tab back here, and this is all rubber on the rear end. Again, it continues in the vein of sealing up the action of the gun. Why it really needs a rubber seal back here, I don't know, because moisture could still seep in through the sides, but that is a pliable rubber back there and a rubber recoil buffer. Taking the recoil spring out just like a standard AK, it's captured. Okay, so there's your spring. Inside, you're going to notice it looks just like an AK with a left-hand charging system on it. Okay, so now I'm going to pull the bolt to the rear. It's just going to pop out just like that. And now you can really see what's going on inside. Again, it looks just like a machined receivered AK. The dimensions look very similar. You're not going to have to worry about that third pinhole. Okay, the issue that they had with the pistols when they first brought them in is not an issue with this gun. It only has 2 pinholes. All right, to take the gas tube off, there's no lever like on original AK. All you have to do is just pull the gas tube to the rear. It's just like the original Galil, and set it aside. And that's really all you have to do to field strip the gun. You can see the heat shielding down inside there in the handguard, and you can easily get in there and clean everything that you need to clean. I'm going to say that looks very similar to my original Galil. Okay, you can also take the bolt out of the carrier simply by rotating it rearward and pulling it out, and that's just a straight up AK bolt, just like the Galil before it. Okay, so now you're going to have this cut out here. I assume this so you can put your finger in there and push the bolt home as a forward assist perhaps, or pull it to the rear, although it's only going to go so far before you hit the top cover. And over here, here's your fixed charging handle, which is pinned to the carrier. There's a little roll pin in there holding it all together. All right, put it back together. Just reverse the process. Take your gas tube, slide it in like so. Put your bolt back in your carrier, just like an AK. Put your gas piston in there, push down and forward. Take your recoil spring, set it in there. Now I do this little trick like I've shown you before. You set the rear of the spring tab down in front of the actual slots it's supposed to ride in, so it's holding it forward. So now you can put this little dovetail here in the front on the top cover into its point here. Okay, you put it in like that, then push it down. You'll notice that, now this is very tightly fit here in the rear end. You'll notice that the recoil springs tab is staying forward. I can push this top cover down. Okay, again, very snug fit. And now by simply pulling the charging handle, watch what happens. The tab pops through. So that's the easy way to put it back together, because this is very, very tightly fit. And that's because you don't want that rear sight moving around. All right, so that's it. So now let's take a look at the original Galil and what it looks like on the inside. You'll notice it has the same, fixed rear sight here on the rear. And this is an old gun, guys. This is a really old gun, and it's still nice and tight after all these years. Same thing, push forward on the tab, pull it off, top cover comes off, look inside. Pretty much the same thing, minus now they have the rubber pieces and the recoil buffer back there. Pull the charging handle back. Slightly different bolt. You have the upturned handle here. The gas piston slightly different. Same AK bolt. All right. Set that aside. Take the gas tube off. And there you can see the inside of the original Galil. While the Israelis wanted to reduce the weight of the Galil, because that was one of the complaints of the original rifle, they still haven't reduced it to the point of an AKM like this Sega, which has been breathed on by Krebs Custom. This is a AK103S, which means it has a shortened barrel. This does have a legal 16-inch length barrel because this muzzle device is pinned and welded. But overall, this little AKM is still a little bit lighter and handier than the ACE. But the ACE still feels really, really good. I will say that the ACE feels more ergonomic, certainly because it has the selector lever by the thumb, something I really like about it. And also the pistol grip, even though some of you are going to complain that you can't swap it out with an AR-15 pistol grip, I personally don't care. I'd rather have the military configuration, and I find the grip on the ACE to be extremely ergonomic. So overall, I still find the ACE to be extremely shootable and more ergonomic than a standard AK like this, which I do love. Let's do a little bit of shooting with this 103K S. Alright, so what's kind of interesting to note is this has a pretty effective muzzle brake on it, and the recoil impulse on this is very similar to the non-braked Galil ACE. That ACE is just buttery smooth. Now this one's smoother than your standard Sega because this one has been worked on by Krebs, but I will say that the ACE is even smoother right out of the box. If you're curious about the sight, this is a Cobra sight, which is a correct Russian-made red dot sight for AKs, and these are surprisingly available from Atlantic Firearms. They've been on and off on importation, but Atlantic is getting them into the country, and I really like them. They're a little bit weird, but they are very cool, and they look really awesome, in my opinion, on an AK. Let's use the Lyman trigger pull gauge here. It's digital, and see what the trigger pull is on the ACE. .15. Reset that. Yeah, that wasn't right. 7.2. Let's try that again. .614. So it's right at 7 pounds on the trigger pull. It's a fairly crisp trigger when it lets off. Little heavy, tiniest amount of over travel, fairly long reset. It doesn't feel like your standard AK trigger. It feels different. But it's a decent little trigger. So, and it's fairly consistent. One thing I want to point out, it's really somewhat insignificant, but it's worth pointing out, is that if you fire the gun, hammer went down, put the gun on safe and try to charge it, the bolt won't go back. Now, if you charge the rifle by cocking the hammer and put it on safe, you can now operate the bolt even though it's on safe. It's just when the hammer's home that you can't operate the bolt with the safety on. So we're going to tie this video up now, guys. I just wanted to get an initial impressions video out there. I've had a chance to shoot the rifle in the past. Obviously, I shot it in Israel. I shot one of the early pre-production or pre-import models. I did some accuracy testing with it previously. We'll do some more here, and we'll definitely have some more shooting videos with this rifle. And I'll keep you guys updated as to the accuracy and the reliability of the gun, and we'll also do a more extensive magazine test in the future. But so far, I'm very impressed with the quality of the gun. It's not surprising. The Israelis build a very high-quality rifle or handgun. It certainly keeps in tradition with the original Galil in terms of the overall quality and the operation of the gun. It absolutely adds new features like the 1913 rail across the top, the left-hand charging, the sealed system. Maintains, though, some of the features of the original Galil, like the side-folding stock, but adding the additional functionality of the adjustable length to pull, and it maintains that selector lever by the shooter's thumb. And we also have a pick rail out here in the front as well, right and left and bottom. Overall, again, great quality, improvements in the features. I know a lot of you guys are going to say, I wish IWI would just issue or start manufacturing the original Galil again. I've been told by them that's an impossibility because the tooling doesn't exist. I already mentioned that. So this is as good as it gets. I agree. I love the old Galil, but I also appreciate the new one. Now, the 5.56 models will come later. I believe the next one they plan to release is a 308, and then the 5.56. And I believe the reason why they don't want to issue or release the 5.56 right away is because they don't want to compete with their Tavor market, which I can somewhat understand, even though they're completely different rifles. The guns are going to retail for right around $1,709, $1,709. They will be available from Atlantic Firearms or Copper Custom. And yeah, I mean, they're expensive. I know a lot of you guys are going to say, there's no way in the world I'm going to pay $1,700 for an AK. I'd rather go buy 10 PSA AR-15s or whatever. I mean, do what you want to do, but if you want to get your hands on one of these classic rifles, which will be a classic, I'm sure, in the future, just like the original Galil was, you're going to have to pay $1,700 to do it. Worth is subjective. Is it worth it to me? Absolutely, because I love Galils and I love AKs, and it's neat to have one of the new rifles in my possession. All right, guys, we're going to sign out for now. We're going to fire off another 30 rounds out of this Russian red, and just look at this thing with that Russian red. Russian reds are like bacon, man. They make everything better. All right, guys, 30 rounds, and we'll talk to you soon. Take the safety off.